looks like we've got a pretty good amount of people here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I am recording this so that you guys can rewatch it if you need to. My name is Samantha. I'm a success coach here at Agency MVP, and this is Agency MVP Live, or sorry, we call it MVP Live. So every month we have kind of like a topic, and then each week we cover different things related to that topic. This month's topic is just kind of a mid-year motivation. I feel like we all need that at some point, right? Raise your hand if you feel like you need some mid-year motivation. Probably do. If you're here, I'm assuming you probably feel like you need something, or you're always looking to learn new things. So I am someone that is all about setting goals and tracking them and seeing where I'm at. I do a lot of like sprint planning and things like that. Raise your hand if that is who you are. Do you like to set goals, track where you're at, adjust them as needed? Some people do and some people don't. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is how I personally was setting goals when I was working in the agency. I've worked with a couple agents over the years, and they've also started setting goals this way. I'm a very detailed person, so you don't have to do it as detailed as that. You can take a couple of the things that we're going to talk about today and use them, or none of it. I mean, it's up to you. I'm not perfect or whatever, right? It's not the only option. There's so many different ways and things that you can do it. But today we're just talking about goal setting and tracking. Last week we kind of talked about implementing MVP and a little touch on like why we have it. Next week we're going to talk about managing staff using MVP. And then the last week of June, on June 24th, we're going to be talking about how to review already made workflows. So we're not going to talk about setting up new workflows. We're going to talk about reviewing workflows that you have already set up and looking at their success and kind of how to address making changes to them. So that's kind of the month of June, what our plan is. If you have any suggestions for any future MVP Live topics, please send me an email. My email is samantha@agencymvp.com. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started here. So those of you that do set goals, what kind of goals do you set? What kind of goals have you set? Do you have? Are you working on? Just kind of give me some examples of what. Use a Q&A box and let me know what kind of goals have you set for yourself or for the agency as a whole. See if we get any answers. All right, premiums sold and policies sold, calls per day, quotes, growth, stuff like that. There's so many different things that you can do, right? My goal is 5 minimum auto a week in one home. Everyone has kind of different. I mean, we have specific number of types of policies. We have number of households. Or, I mean, there's just so many different things that you can do. You can count it based on households or line of business, or we can do it sold. So that's cool. Thank you guys so much for sharing your goals that you do. For me personally, my goals were broken down really in depth. So I had like a big picture, right? A really big picture. And then I would just kind of track my progress on how I was getting to that big goal. Raise your hand if you are tracking your goals that you have set. Okay. If you are tracking your goals, let me know, how are you tracking them? How often are you tracking them as well? Someone said another goal is CSR follow-up call volume, households quoted, sales conversations per CSR. So that's pretty cool. Got specific goals for each person and a number with it. All right, some people said they are doing it daily or weekly. How are you tracking them? Like, what are you looking at? Do you track it on a spreadsheet? Are you just looking at some reports, creating it yourself? Do you have like a Some people have a thermometer type thing in their office. So like I know a lot of you guys know who Todd McLean is. He's our founder, and his agency, they have some really big goals that have some really great rewards for the team, and they use a kind of like one of those little thermometers that they like color in as they're getting to their goals. It kind of reminds me of like when you're like working with your kids, right? Trying to teach them to do chores and all that, you give them stars or like potty training or whatever, right? I mean, even us as adults, that kind of stuff is cool. I like that kind of stuff. I like to see my progress and be able to look at it all the time. So doesn't matter, I mean, how you're looking at it, what you're doing. Raise your hand if you guys have something that's like on the wall that you can see every day. I love that kind of stuff. We had some of that in our agency, kind of changed depending on what types of goals we were hitting. But having something that you can see on the wall every day is going to help you out too. So just think of different ideas, what to do, and how you want to track them, what motivates you. That's what's most important, is what motivates you. Okay. So we got lots of cool feedback. Let me kind of clear these so I can make sure I can keep up with everyone's questions. You guys have some good goals here. So has anyone ever heard of SMART goals before? Raise your hand if you ever heard of that. Okay, some people have, some haven't. So you will see SMART. So use that to help create your goals. Specific for S. M is measurable. A is achievable. R could be, some people call it relevant, and some people, I don't remember the other word that some people use for that. Pretty much it applies to realistic is some that some people use for realistic. That's what it is. And then T is time bound. Most importantly is time bound. So we've got specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, or relevant. And then T is time bound. Okay, so those are really important to think about when you're setting your goals. So I'd write that down. Definitely will help you out. Thanks, Jessica. Couldn't remember it. There's so many different things to look at. I should have refreshed my memory before I did this. So one of the biggest problems with goal setting that I have found with all of the agents I've worked with across the last couple of years, most people forget about the playbook. What do you think the playbook is when it comes to setting goals? Kind of sticking with the sports theme here with MVP. So what do you think the playbook is when it comes to setting your goals? Yeah, it's a series of plans to reach your goals. It's your strategies, your tactics, right? How are we going to get there? So we all have the goal of how much premium or policies that we want to write for the entire year. But how are you going to get there? Right? I want to sell $1 million in premium this year. Okay, how are we going to get there? What are we going to do to get there? Okay, so let's think about it this way. You have a basketball game. The goal is to win the game, right? Who wins the basketball game? I know it's kind of a dumb question, you might think, but who wins the basketball game? What would you say? Cody, that's the good answer. That's what I was looking for. Anyone else? Who wins the basketball game? Hopefully it'll be the Jazz that wins, right? But it's the team that has the plan, right? So it's the team with the most points, right? It's the team that has the best coaches and the players. But what makes them better is their playbook, right? It's their strategies and their tactics to win the game. So they have developed these different strategies or plays, whatever we want to call them, to achieve their goal of winning their games, the playoffs, championships, whatever it is here, right? So the team needs to make sure that they have a couple different things. They need to make sure that they have the right players that fit their needs, right? So in an agency, you're going to have What are you going to have in an agency? What do you need in an agency to fit your needs and to achieve your goals? You ever thought about that? We need probably a service work, right? A CSR. We need probably at least one salesperson, right? Do we need different departments? Do we need a commercial team and a life team and just auto home? And then we have the agent, right? Do we need someone that does financial services or whatever it is, right? So we have the players that are going to fit your needs. And then once they get the right players, they need to create their playbook. So once you have the right staff, even if you don't have the right staff, think about what you have now. What do you have to work with, right? Because mid-season and we lost all of our good players, not much we can do. We've got to kind of readjust here. So what can we do with what we have is another approach that we want to take as well too. Okay. So as far as really setting those specific goals, everyone does things differently. So I really want you guys to remember that what I'm going to talk about today, it's not the only way or the best way to set goals. Okay. But for myself and some of the agents that I've worked with during my time working here at MVP and previous to that, this has kind of worked well. So we're going to talk about what I do, what I did with setting goals. Feel free to use the Q&A box to ask questions to let me know what you do and how you set your goals. Those of you that have a plan that you like and you want to share, please use the Q&A box and let me know. I'd be more than happy to share what you do as well. So let's see here. Can everyone hear me okay? I've been having some microphone issues all day. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me. Perfect. Good. All right. So let's go ahead and think back to what your goals are for your agency. Raise your hand if you know what your goal is for the year for your agency. Let's start with the big picture goal. What is do you have a goal for the year? Raise your hand if you have a goal for 2021. People have goals of, I want to have this many policies in place. I want to sell this much premium in a year or whatever. Okay, so let's go ahead and have some fun doing some math. I'm not the best at math. I always use a calculator. So if you have any easier ways to calculate these things, let me know. But let's go ahead and say that we want to write $1 million in premium in a year. Raise your hand if you've ever done that. Anyone ever done that before? To me, it sounds crazy because of the premiums in the state that I worked in. So it's like insane to see that number and super overwhelming. I mean, it's probably overwhelming to people that have high premiums too. Raise your hand if you look at that number and it kind of has a little bit of, I guess, anxiety to it. So I mean, for lack of a better word, we can call it anxiety. That makes me really nervous and probably makes me not even want to start trying to achieve that goal because I don't think I can ever get there. Raise your hand if that's what you would think when you see that goal. That's me. So pretty much with all of my goals, I have a really, really big goal, and then I want to go ahead and break it down into smaller achievable goals as well. So let's go ahead and figure out if I want to write $1 million in a year, let's go ahead and break this down per month. So I'll divide it by 12, giving us about 83,000. Y'all can see this calculator, right? Raise your hand if you can see the calculator. Perfect. Okay. So we've got about 83,000 in premium a month. Does that sound a little bit better? Raise your hand if you think that's a little bit better to look at that compared to the million. I think. I mean, those of you that are in low premium states, I mean, I see some of you guys from Utah where I was at, and that's still a lot, right? So let's go ahead. Of course, you're going to adjust your goals differently. I've heard a lot lately that people's goals this year is to hit $1 million in premium. So that's why we're doing that. But your state could be different. Okay. So think about your number. So we got 83,000 in premium in a month is what we would have to hit to get to our goal. Okay. So that's still a lot. I want to break this down a little bit smaller. I'll go ahead and break it down per week. You can do this part if you want to, you don't have to. So if I break it down per week, it's about 20 to 21,000. That's a little bit better to look at, right? So we got 21,000 in premium per week. That sounds achievable, right? That's realistic for us. So let's go ahead and figure out if we have about 20 to 21,000. We'll say 21,000 to be kind of on the higher end. Let's go ahead and get rid of everything here. All right. So let's say we've got 21,000. It's how much we want to write in a week. Let's go ahead and figure out what is our average premium per household. Do you know what your average premium per household is? Use the Q&A box and tell me what you think your average premium per household. Let's say you're doing an auto and a home policy. Raise your hand if you do auto and home for almost everyone, or you try to at least. Perfect. We should be trying to at least get auto and home. Okay. So, oh my gosh, some of your guys' average premium is just insane to think. I mean, the highest policy I have ever written in the agency was $1,800, and that was with earthquake on my home policy. So these numbers are huge to me. I know some of you guys are in the same boat, but I mean, some people are saying that their average or their average household is 4,000 plus. So that's awesome. This goal might be a little bit easier for you to achieve, right? But for those of you that are about 1,500 to 1,000 or less per household, per average household, let's say auto and home, you're probably not going to have a goal that high. Okay. So kind of think about that as well as we're kind of going through this. I don't want you to get overwhelmed and think that you have to have a goal that high. But let's just say I'm going to kind of find a happy medium between everybody. Let's say that our average premium, our average household is about 3,000. Okay, so let's do 21,000 divided by 3,000, 7 households. That's 7 households in a week. Getting better? Are the numbers getting a little bit better for you, a little bit more realistic and not so scary, I guess? Raise your hand if you think so. Right? That makes it look so much better when you think about it that way. How many of you guys currently do something like this and break your numbers into small steps? Only one of you does. That's okay. There's a couple of you. That's all right. If you don't do that, that's fine. But this is going to make it seem so much easier to reach your goals, like you said, Cody. So hopefully this is going to help you guys out so far. So we've got that. We've got 7 households per week. That's cool. That's a really good goal. Okay. Let's go ahead. Oh, Sherry, that's a really good question. What is the best way to figure out average premium per household? Let's go ahead and look in MVP. Okay, so as long as everyone's using MVP correctly, let's go ahead and change this and let's go to sales activity. Let's go there to see kind of what you've been selling, or we can look at quote activity. Let's go to quote activity actually. We'll do that. Let's change this to, we can look at like a 3-month, 4-month, 6-month, whatever you want to look at here. Change it to look at a bigger time range. And let's let this load and take a look. So you can also export this as well. Change the time range here and you can export it. That would actually be a little bit easier now that I think about it. Let's do that. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and download this. It's going to export. So the reason why I'm doing this is because it's showing me my premiums quoted, which it does also include premiums sold, right? So if it's highlighted in green, it means that it's been sold. Okay. So if I look at my total premiums quoted, let's find that here. All right. Total premium quoted, that's per household. Okay. So if I click on column N, it tells me that the average here is $23.35 as my average. If I look at my total premium sold average per household, that's $581. So you got to think about that too. That's a really, really big difference. Have you guys ever looked at that, the average premium you're quoting and the average premium you're selling per household? So that's something that's good to look at too, right? So that's a really big difference between the two. So we want to probably figure out either what we're doing, are we marking everything as sold in MVP, or are we really just kind of going after one policy? This is my testing account. As you can tell, like pretty much everything's the same here. But hopefully yours doesn't have that big of a difference. Sherry, did that help for you? So that's probably the easiest way to find that. If you're not tracking everything in MVP, I'm sure that you have some type of reports that you can do, but everything in MVP and tracking everything in MVP makes your life a million times easier for things like this too. Okay. All right. So we've got our average premium about, let's see, we've got average premium 3,000 per household. We want to sell 21,000 premium a month, which gives us 7 households, 21,000 a week, 7 households a week. Okay, confusing myself here. All right, so would you guys stop here? Raise your hand if you think that that's enough information for you to start working towards this goal. Is that enough? You're good? You feel like that's broken it down into what you need, how you're going to get there, and you can start working towards it. If you feel like you would keep going and breaking down more numbers, what would you do next? What would you do next? Any ideas on what would you do next? Yes, Ron, that's correct. That's what I would do next. How many quotes do I need to do to sell 7? Or how many phone calls does it take to generate 7 households? That's a good one as well. So how many phone calls does it take to get a quote? That's important too. This is where it kind of starts to get a little tricky, okay? How many of you know what your average closing ratio is? And if you do, put it in the Q&A box and let me know. What is your average closing ratio? All right, we have some that say no clue, and that's okay if you don't know right now. It's really important to understand this and know this for things like this, okay? And then I can help you look at your closing ratio and figure it out. You can find that in MVP as well, okay? So we've got some that have said 11, we've got 15, we've got 20. I'm going to be really lazy and just do an easy number here, and we're going to do 20. Raise your hand if you like math. Are you good at math? Who's good at math? I'm not. So I might be doing this a hard way, but I'm going to go ahead and show you what I do. So to figure out, so I know I need to sell 7, right? And let's say my average closing ratio is 20%, but how am I going to find how many I need to do to get 20%, which equals 7? So what I do, I don't know if this is the easiest way or the hardest way or what, but I would do 7 times 100. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and divide it by 20, which is 35. Does that make sense? Does anyone know if that's the easiest way to do that? That's the way I do it. So I have my number, multiply it by 100, divide it by 20, because that's 20%, right? What we're looking for, because that's 35. Okay, so to check our math here, let's do 35 minus 20%, which is 7. There we go. Make sense? Raise your hand if that made sense. No, did not make sense. Okay, so we need to figure out, I know that I have a 20% closing ratio, and I know that I need to sell 7. Okay, so what does my number that I need to get to? So I have 7, I multiply it by 100, and then I divide it by 20. Whoa, let's see, got 7, multiply it by 100, divide it by 20 equals 35. So find your number. What is your number of households that you need to close in a week? It's 4. 4 times 100 divided by, what is your closing ratio? It's 10. Divide it by 10. And then that gives you your total number of households that you need to quote in that week to get to your 7, hopefully. Raise your hand if that makes sense. Getting there? I think it's going to take you doing it and connecting it with your numbers for you to do it. Maybe I'll make a worksheet for this. I think that will help. Raise your hand if you think you need a worksheet for something like this. All right. I don't blame y'all because I'm not good at math either. So I think I've been doing this for so long that that's why it makes sense to me. All right. So we need to do 35 quotes in a week. How many households do you need to call to be able to quote 35? Let's figure that out. Okay. So let's go ahead and say that we need 35 households to be quoted in a week. Let's go ahead and say we quote 20% of the households that we talk to. We'll do that fun one again, 35 times 100 divided by 20, to keep it simple, 175, right? On average, we quote about 20% of the households that we talk to, okay? But how many people do you got to talk to them? So that's going to break it down even more. So we need to talk to 175 people in a week to quote 35 of them, to sell 7 of them. Okay, so what we want to do here is just really break them down to as small as you want them to be. I get very detailed with them, very, very detailed with my phone calls. I know that on average, it takes about 12 to 15 phone calls for me to close a sale before I start seeing sales. So at this point, what I would do is I would just go ahead and multiply 175 people times 15. That's a lot. That's 2,600 phone calls in a week. I'm not going to do all of that. So we need to figure out how are we going to split this amongst everybody in our agency, right? Because that's the agency goal. That's a really, really big number that we're looking at. We started at $1 million premium. That's not going to be done by one person. And if it is done by one person, then you have the right career because you are killing it. But I'm not going to do that by myself, right? So the agency as a whole needs to make about 2,600 phone calls a week. How many staff members do you have? Do you have 4? That's 656 in a week divided by 5 is about 130 phone calls a day. Okay. So that's kind of how it is. I mean, if you're selling $1 million in premium and you only have 4 or 4 staff, hopefully you have like 4 sales staff and then a telemarketer as well. But that's kind of how you break it down there. Hopefully that makes sense. Raise your hand if that made sense. Cool. All right. So if you are going to go set a goal, let me know what your goals are. Yeah, I will make a worksheet and get that out to you guys. I didn't really think about it, to be honest. I am, as much as I'm a planner, I also am a procrastinator. So a lot of these MVP lives, I kind of wing them because I just want to talk about just whatever and not really script these calls or these webinars because we want to make sure that we can just talk about things that come up in the agency, you know? So I'll be better and prepare. I'll make a worksheet on this. I'll share it in the Facebook groups. Hopefully you guys are in the Facebook group. So it's the agency MVP -members only. Perfect. I'm glad you like that I kind of wing these webinars because I think it's the best way to do it really and just kind of address questions that come up. So based on all that we just talked about, what kind of questions do you have before we talk about tracking them? What kind of questions do you have for me about setting your goals? trying to review any parts of that. If you want to talk about this, I mean, I'll make a worksheet and you can put your numbers in there. I think what I might end up doing is do like a spreadsheet that you just drop your numbers in and it does all the math for you. It'll take me some time to get done for you guys, but I probably will do it that way. I mean, we all love things that will work for us, right? That's how we have MVP. So I'll probably maybe do that. All right, what kind of goals are you going to set? What is your goal? Let's talk like that big 1 year number. What is it? Is it $1 million premium? Is it 500,000 in premium? Is it 100 policies in a month? What is it? Is it an agency goal or individual as well too? Use the Q&A box and let me know. I don't share your answers so people won't see like your name with that type of answer. I only share your questions for everyone to see. So that's all right. But this is just a place where we can all talk and learn what other agents are doing. I mean, some agents are really shy and they're like, yeah, I can't compete with the big dogs, but that's okay. That's not you, right? Your goals are different than the person next to you. I know I talked about $1 million today for our calculator, but I did that because I wanted to show you how we can take a really, really big number and make it small and seem realistic and achievable. Okay, that's why I did that. We've got grow 150,000 in premium by the end of the year, 120,000 a year. There's just lots of different goals. Okay. All right, let's talk about tracking them. Raise your hand if you feel like you struggle with tracking. I used to struggle with tracking. I used to be really good at writing down. I'm a list maker. I mean, I probably make like 4 grocery lists a week. I'm always writing stuff down and just kind of like a brain dump, right? And making these goals and these to-do lists and these things that I want to do, and then would have trouble with seeing where I'm at. I mean, I make these grocery lists and then I go to the grocery store and I don't get anything that was on the list, right? So, I mean, you're not alone if that's you. Hopefully I'm not alone. That's kind of more what I'm getting at there. But we want to make sure we're staying on top of ourselves, right? Making sure we're tracking our goals or moving in the right direction. And if we're not moving in the right direction, we need to readjust. Okay. I mean, life throws curveballs at us, right? Look at the last, we're 2 years now of COVID. I mean, I think raise your hand if you feel like you have had to change everything that you're doing and your goals because of the pandemic. A lot of agents were just like, I don't even know what to do. Like everything is changing. We lost staff. We had to start becoming teachers and business owners or full-time workers and all of that stuff, right? So a lot of things changed. We need to readjust. It could be just little small things that changed. Maybe you have to change your hours that you're working or whatever it is. So I would highly recommend that what I would do is set a daily goal. And then that daily goal is going to get you to your weekly goal. So I like to break things down really, really small, right? Notice how I did that, how many phone calls need to be made a day. That's a small goal, right? I know when I come into MVP, I have all of my call view pages up top. What are these? What are these call view pages for? Someone said, we are a small agency, but our goal is to write 5,000 premium in a week. That's awesome. That's 20,000 in a month, right? So I just want everyone to know that your goals are your goals and everybody's different too, okay? All right, what is a call view page? What are these in the header and the top of my MVP account? What are these? Brandy, you know what these are. We just talked about them. A lot of you guys know what these are. What is a call view page? Raise your hand if you don't know what a call view page is. All right, so at the top, we have all these buttons. These are the header is what they're called. All right, so when I click on leads, I see a list of ranked leads or priority leads, okay? But these are a list of households that need a phone call today. You guys should be here every single day. You need to go to leads, you need to check hot leads, you need to check API leads if you have any, you need to check awaiting and quoted, and you need to click on all of these cross-sell opportunities over here. So listen to Brandy. She goes, amazing what happens when you click on your call log and it just work it from top to bottom. We just started talking about this and she's already noticing a huge difference. So props to you. I'm proud of you, girl. All right. So we have these call view pages. They are lists of households that need a phone call today. If they're a priority, there's someone that you set an appointment for, and that is not MVP ranking them. If they're down here, they're ranked based on our smart algorithm. If you don't know how to work these pages, please reach out to your assigned success coach or send me an email and I'll get you in contact with them. My email is samantha@agencymvp.com. This is extremely important. I cannot stress how important it is to know how to use your call view pages and how to use all of these call filters. Raise your hand if you know how to use your call filters. Okay. If you don't know how to use these, you need to reach out to your success coach as well. That can be taken care of in less than a 30-minute coaching call. Okay. They're very important. They're really going to help you out. All right. So every day you have all of these lists. We have 91 prospects, almost 11,000 leads, and then we have, it says 613 customers, but that's all of your customers. These are just your cross-sell opportunities over here. So all these people need phone calls today. Your numbers aren't probably going to be this big. This is a testing account. We don't use it correctly because we just add a bunch of stuff in here to show people how to do one thing and then move on. So don't judge me too hard on this one, but your numbers should be pretty realistic, right? If you can't call everybody on your list, then other people in your agency can see them potentially, okay? But your goal every day is to get all of these numbers as close to zero as possible. If you don't have a lot of people on your lists, we need to talk about what are we doing with them? Because if someone doesn't need a phone call today, you're not going to see them here. If you only have 10, 15, 20 people here every day and you've been using MVP for over 3 months, we need to talk about when we're pipelining to and how we're using the pipelining feature, okay? Over time, these pages are going to grow and grow and grow in MVP, and that is the purpose. So every day you should be coming into MVP and going to your call view pages and trying to get them as close to zero as possible. When you click Agency MVP on the top left corner, you're going to see your call activity. This is your call activity for today. This is the total number of phone calls that you have logged. 9 phone calls for today. These are the 7 households have been called. So we've called 7 different households for a total of 9 phone calls. That means that we've called the same household multiple times. Maybe we called one household twice and another household twice, and then everybody else was just once, okay? We've got 2 of them were leads, 2 of them were prospects, and none of them were from the cross-sell section. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if that makes sense. Good. Okay. So in MVP, we have the performance report. Raise your hand if you have ever seen the performance report. Not very many of you are raising your hand. Am I boring you guys? Are we starting to get lost. All right, so here is a performance report. I want to just show you an example here. This is emailed to the agent, or the email on the agency owner's MVP account, the admin account. It shows every single staff member. It shows a number of leads that were called for each staff member, API leads, hot leads. So we break it down a little bit more than what you can see on that dashboard. Awaiting prospects, quoted prospects, cross sells. So there's a number of households, right? We got the total households called, and then the total call attempts made, and then also the text messages that were sent as well. I would recommend that you send this to everybody in the agency. So when you get this at nighttime, I mean, if you're up this late checking your email, send it to everyone at that point. Otherwise, just do it in the morning, forward it to everybody so we can see what we did yesterday. It really helped hold me accountable, seeing activity from everyone else in the agency. So when I used MVP, we didn't have this report. I really wish we did, but we have it now, so that's great. Something else that we would use is the quote and sales activity. You can see what everyone's doing in your agency during the chosen time range. Change it to whatever you want, and you can see. This staff member is in 17 quotes. This one has 4, right? Look at the difference in premium quoted. I mean, maybe the staff member only works part-time, or they have different goals than I do, but it will help keep you accountable and kind of push you as well. If you click the plus symbols, you can kind of break it down and see what they've quoted and what they're doing. If our goal is premium sold, and that's part of our goal, we need to make sure that we're quoting as much premium per household as possible. We should not be quoting just monoline, right? So track your activity, look at what you're doing, see where they're getting in the sales process. Are they just leads? Are they going to prospects? Right? This is cross sales, so we're selling stuff, or they're customers. So you can look at that stuff as well too. Okay. So track your activity, see what you're doing, look in MVP. How many times are you calling these households before they're being pipelined out? How many times do you call a household before you pipeline them out? Let's say you haven't gotten a hold of somebody. How many times do you try to call them until you decide that it's time to pipeline them out to a future date, more than 30 days out? Any feedback on that? I've got 3 answers so far. Some say up to 15. We got 7 to 8. We've got 12. I see some people that call them 2 or 3 times and that's it. And then they give up. On average, for most agencies, we're seeing about 12 contact attempts before we're seeing sales. So the way to see that in your agency, as long as you're logging all of your phone calls and we go to the sales activity, we can see the number of call attempts that were logged for each household before they were marked as sold. This does help kind of with your ROI too, right? If we are paying a lot of money for leads and then it's taking us 20, 30, 40 phone calls before we're closing it, it's pretty costly, right? But if they are cheaper leads and we're calling more, how much premium we're getting, that kind of stuff is good to think about too. But this is what's going to motivate you. I was the same way when I first got MVP. I really struggled with calling a lot. I didn't like to call a ton. I didn't want to be called a ton, so I didn't want to call other people a ton, right? So looking at the number of call attempts it takes on average before you're seeing sales in your agency is going to help. I learned that I was about 12 to 15. It does depend on the type of leads that you're working though. If you're doing a lot of referrals, it's probably a little less, right? But if you're doing cold calling and internet leads, probably a little bit more, or like events or things like that, it's probably going to be a little bit more call attempts, right? These are the number of attempts that have been logged for that household, number of phone calls. Okay. All right. Someone asked about the text and emails. Are those being counted? At this time, they're not. We are discussing how we want those to track on the number of attempts. Technically, they are contact attempts, right? So right now, it's just the phone calls that were logged. So if you're logging a phone call, doesn't matter if you're doing it from the call view page. So here, when you click save, this is what's counting it as a contact attempt. Not this add button. It's this save button that's doing it. Raise your hand if you use this green add button to log your phone calls. Who uses this green add button? If you are using this green add button to log your phone calls, you should be changing to using the blue save button. We log them up top. The green add button is to add calls in that you forgot to log in the past. That's what they're intended for. Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, there is my spiel on goal setting and tracking. My advice is find the big picture goal, what you're wanting to achieve long term. Probably like a year, right? It's probably better. I mean, you can do more if you want, like 2 years, 3 years, whatever, that's fine. And break it down to a daily goal. Okay. How many phone calls do I need to log every day? That's a good one. Having the motivation to call is really important. And you see that you're getting closer and closer to your goal. So it's going to make you want to pick up that phone and dial like crazy. Raise your hand if you feel like you see that you're so close to breaking a personal record or hitting your goal. So you just work really, really hard. Raise your hand if that's what you do. That's what I did. I did that all the time. I would be like, oh my gosh, I'm so close to this. I'm just going to stay here and work. I'm going to work evenings this week so I can hit that goal. And so it was really cool to see that kind of stuff. So get yourself a tracker of some sort, whether it is filling up a jar with something or filling in the thermometer or whatever, and have something. You got to have some type of reward for yourself. I know people that use it for vacations, agency trips, or like a personal thing. Maybe you're going to buy yourself something, or we're going to do team events. There's just so many different things that you can do, but have something that you can look at and that you can color in, you can add stickers to, you can do something to kind of fulfill that on a daily basis to really help keep you motivated. Hopefully that works. What do you do that you feel works really good to like motivate yourself? Do you guys use like a tracker of some sort? What do you have? Any ideas or anything that you want me to share with others that you think works really well for you? We can talk about that as well. All right, well, I'm gonna hang out for about another minute or so. And then we'll say we got one. Make small goals so that you can achieve them. I mean, that's what's most important. Making the small goals so that you can achieve them. Because when we look at that big one, it's hard to see that. But we also want to make sure we're pushing ourselves, right? I'm not going to make a goal of I want to sell 5 policies in a week because I know I can do that for sure. When I really want to make sure I'm trying to get to 10 or whatever it is, right? If yours is 5 a week, then that's okay. But if you know that you can do it no matter what, whether you work 2 days that week or 5, I'd probably push it a little bit more, right? But then again, we do also work to live. We don't live to work, right? So we got to kind of think about that. I'm really bad at that, so I had to remind myself. But it is important too, though, that if you do keep failing your goals, you'll stop making them. I really like that, Eric. That's a good one. If you're not meeting your goals, then we need to adjust them. We don't want to make ourselves not want to work towards something, right? You know what I mean? So make them realistic, of course. Maybe we can just put it up by one policy or $100 in premium or something like that. Okay. Cody says that I buy myself a sweet gift when I have reached my goals. Me too. That's always good. And then as a team, we're working towards it, and bonuses are offered or other things as well. So that's cool too. Something that I'll never forget in my interview for my producer position that I had gotten, I think it was like third or fourth question was, what motivates you? And I'd never been asked that before. And I thought that was really cool because I'm that person that I have things that motivate me. What do I want in return of reaching goals? Things like that. Talk to your staff about that. I think I talked about that last week as well. But for me, I mean, I love food and I love purses. So that was my thing. I mean, my agent never bought me a purse, but I had bonuses to buy them, so that's good. But food is a good thing too. Our telemarketing team, we had some telemarketers in office, food motivated them. They just wanted food or to leave an hour early paid. That was it. Pretty simple. We'd buy pizza and they would be happy as can be. So stuff like that works well. Figure out what motivates you, what motivates your team, and use that to motivate yourself. All right, guys, thank y'all so much for joining. I hope I was able to teach you a little bit today, help you learn how to set goals. If you're going to go as detailed as that, that's great. If not, that's okay too. Everybody sets goals differently and works differently. If you need any help with setting your goals, have any questions, let me know. Send me an email. I will be happy to help. Everyone have a great day. Stay safe and healthy, and we will talk soon. See y'all next week.